on satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7.
Jaffna protests. Demands made to release LTTE suspects during President's visit to the north. Role model. UN Special Rapporteur says Sri Lanka can set a good example in conflict resolution. Don't sign it yet. Minister Mano Ganeshan wants the Gazette on municipal councils, urban councils and Pradesh Sabhas delayed. Had enough. Trump threatened to tear apart the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Think again. Cricketers urge SSC to rethink touring Pakistan. Bring you news from home and across the world. You're watching First at 9 on Other Derana 24/7. Good evening, I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to our top story tonight. A protest was held in Jaffna today in defiance of court orders demanding the release of jailed LTTE suspects, considering them as political prisoners. President Maithripala, who is on a visit to Jaffna, however, met with the protesters and discussed their issues.
A court order was issued by the Jaffna magistrate S. Sadishkaran banning protests in Jaffna during President Maithripala's official visit to the region today upon a request made by Jaffna police. However, Northern Provincial Councillor M.K. Shivajilingam and a group of protesters held a demonstration at Hindu College Junction in Jaffna this morning. They demanded that LTTE suspects to be freed upon classifying them as political prisoners and to transfer their case being heard at the Anuradhapura court to the Vaunia court.
I asked the President as to how he showed gratitude to the people who voted for him. How can we expect him to solve national problems when such small problems are not addressed? We started the protests before the President arrived and we are hoping to continue. We request the President to make an appropriate decision over the issue.
Meanwhile, the Northern Province program of the National Food Production Battle under the theme Let's Get Together and Rise, Let's Fill the Granary was held today in Puttur, Nilaveri under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena. The President distributed seeds and saplings of fruits and other crops to the farmers. The head of state also presented 20 million rupees for the development of agro-wells in the Jaffna Peninsula. The introduction of solar power as a cost-effective scheme for agriculture was also witnessed at the ceremony, while the President also inspected a modern machine which slices bananas. Later, the President engaged in a friendly conversation with the farming community. President also participated in the award ceremony of the All-Ireland Tamil Language and Cultural Festival of Jaffna Hindu College. The new built technological faculty of the college was vested in the students today.
I regret the fact that I cannot speak Tamil. In this era, national reconciliation is a topic often discussed, but there are so many who obstruct it. They are inhuman. When I was on my way here, there were some people protesting with black flags in hand. They spoke with me about their problems. I requested a discussion. They said they don't want discussions, asking me instead to fulfill their demands. If there is a problem, however, the relevant parties should discuss it. We cannot allow another war in this country. It's not black flags that should be hoisted, but white flags for peace.
In the meantime, also touching on the 30 years conflict, UN Special Rapporteur Pablo de Grief says Sri Lanka could become a role model in conflict resolution. He made these remarks speaking at a public gathering at the Public Library Auditorium in Jaffna.
Special rapporteurs are not regular UN staff members, and that means we cannot represent the views of the organization as a whole. Special rapporteurs report to the Human Rights Council and to the General Assembly, but I do not speak for the institution as a whole. I think that Sri Lanka stands in a very good possibility of providing lessons to the region and to the world about how to settle a conflict, not just from a military standpoint, but how to settle a conflict in a way that redresses the claims of justice of victims, not just of that conflict, which ended in 2009, but of a much longer history of violations, in my opinion, are at the root of the low levels of trust that afflict Sri Lankan social relations.
Minister of Regional Development Field Marshal Sarat Fonseca meanwhile insists that LTTE cadres responsible for serious crimes are not political prisoners. The minister made his views clear on the Hartal campaign being worked off following a function in Dalugama today.
We don't accept it as politics, since a terrorist is always a terrorist and should face the country's law. He is a good man, but unfortunately he is on the wrong side. Political repercussions have to be faced when falling in with the wrong crowd. As for his removal, the president was too late in removing him. There could be 4 or 5 thieves among 1,000 people. 1 or 2 thieves might get caught, but them being found out means thieves cannot endure.
Deputy Minister of Power and Renewable Energy Ajit P. Pereira expresses his concerns over the fact that scams related to bond transactions seem to continue, even though his government introduced a new method with transparency. The Deputy Minister expressed his thoughts last evening while addressing a function held in Colombo.
After coming into power, we gave freedom to the bond market. The previous corrupted private placement method was cancelled and a new bond system with 100% transparency was introduced. During yesterday's proceedings at the Commission, what really happened was revealed. In the computer of one of the persons implicated in this crime contained information of informants with nicknames and the sums paid for each one of them. Transactions had taken place in 2015 and in 2016 after this government came into power. The chief dealer of the EPF, who can be identified with the evidence given by the witness alone, was paid 97 million rupees. If one dealer was paid 97 million rupees, imagine what the profit could be. We proudly stated the bond market would be freed for everyone to compete equally with transparency. Now it's clear we are mistaken. 75% who joined the auction is the government. The rest, however, which is a small percentage, is the private sector. When the dealers of government and private sector become informants for one entity, how can there be transparency? Where is fair competition? Where is the economic freedom?
Leader of the Tamil Progressive Alliance, Minister Manu Ganeshan, calls on the government not to gazette the municipal councils, urban councils and Pradesh Sabha Election Amendment Acts. Chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, however, stated today that if Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government, Faisal Mustafa, does gazette the acts, the Commission will definitely hold local government elections.
Minister Faisal Mustafa presented the draft bills to the Chairman of the Elections Commission. Minister Mustafa is going to gazette them on Tuesday. I requested him yesterday not to do so. The reason is that the government has made us a number of promises. There are 2 Pradesh Sabhas in the Nuwara district, Ambagamua and Nuwara, both of which are home to over 200,000 people. It's very unfair. Don't issue gazettes right now. We'll discuss this problem and bring the number of Pradesh Sabhas in the Nuwara district from 5 to 12 and then get the gazette issued. Don't try to act otherwise.
Chairman of the Elections Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, however, had this to say in response. Meanwhile, General Secretary of the newly launched United National Freedom Front, Attorney at Law Maithripala, along with party representatives, met with the chairman of the Elections Commission today.
We're not against the United National Party. Today, the UNP's chairman, the General Secretary and the national organiser are all facing the possibility of having to go before the Commission of Inquiry over the bond issue. The current UNP leadership is a shame to the party members. We don't want to destroy or split the UNP. That's being done by its leadership.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says the government's aim is to free the country of the debt burden and create job opportunities in the country within the next 3 years. The Premier made the remarks speaking at a meeting of UMP representatives in Morawaka, Matra.
We thought we won't be able to carry on for even 2 years because of economic problems. But within 2 years, we stabilised the economy. Our aim is to pay off this debt within this generation itself instead of handing it down to future generations. We weren't able to relieve the country of its debt burden last year, but we now have the strength to pay it off next year and then go on to develop the country methodically. During the next 3 years, we will focus mainly on paying off debt and creating job opportunities. We were handed a dead weight in the form of the Hambantota port. We have now solved that issue. They tell us not to give the port to a Chinese company, but who built the port in the first place.
Meanwhile, this morning, the Prime Minister also took part in a UNP membership campaign in Porupitiya and Waralla. Minister of Law and Order and Southern Development Sagala Ratnayaka also joined in the campaign. The Premier also visited homes of local residents and inquired about their issues.
Minister of Special Assignments Dr. Sarath Amunugama says that once the Mattala airport is developed, Sri Lanka can be a hub in not only South Asia but also in East Africa. He was speaking at an event in Kandy today where he also spoke about the importance of Japan and China as developing partners of the country.
So we are developing, and you rightly mentioned tourism. Now we have something like 2.5 million tourists coming to Sri Lanka. In 3 years, we plan to have 5 million tourists coming to Sri Lanka. We are hoping that Japanese tourists also will come in large numbers to Sri Lanka. We are negotiating with Japan to have an airline to come to Sri Lanka. We need the Bank of Japan to come here. Now this city is being developed with JICA assistance. There is a Japanese team already in Kandy trying to see how we can develop this city. We are developing Bogambara. There will be a transport hub. Already Japan is giving assistance for the greater Kandy water scheme. So Japan is a key investor in Sri Lanka, key supporter of Sri Lanka. And I am happy to say all the oil that goes to Japan, most of the oil that goes to China goes within 10 kilometers of Sri Lankan South. So we are a very vital strategic center for Japan and China. So the future is very strong. I think you can make Sri Lanka the hub for your expansion in the whole of Southeast Asia. And not only that, when we develop the Mattala airport, it will be a hub even for East Africa. Today, the closest to East Africa, they can be reached from Sri Lanka much faster than going through Dubai and all these places.
It's now time for a short commercial break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. The Department of Meteorology warns that heavy rains of 100 millimeters to 100 millimeters can be expected in some places in Sabragama province as well as in Kalutara, Galle and Matra districts tonight. In the meantime, the Department of Irrigation warns people living in low-lying areas to be vigilant of rivers Ging and Kalu of overflowing in face of prevalent rains. The National Building Research Organization also says caution should be exercised since there is a risk of landslides in areas falling under Kahavatta, Palmadula and Aliyagoda divisional secretariats in the Ratnapura district.
4 rivers including Kalu, Nilwala, Ging and Kalani are at spill level due to continuous rains. The Irrigation Department urges people living in Ratnapura, Ellagawa, Millakanda and Putupaula adjacent to the river Kaluganga to be vigilant. In the meantime, the Irrigation Department also announced that a mild flood situation may arise in Millakanda within the coming hours. People in the areas of Palindanura, Ingiriya, Bulatsinhala and Horana divisional secretariats in the Kalutara district are advised to be on alert. With the southwestern monsoon coming into effect, traffic in several areas in the country experienced disruptions with roads inundated. The day-to-day lives of public in Kalutara was affected by the heavy rains. This was the situation in Ratnapura around River Kaluganga this morning. In the meantime, 2 vehicles sustained damages when part of the roof at the Bambalapitiya train station collapsed due to heavy rain. Incessant rains in the central hills have led to 2 spill gates of the Lakshapana reservoir to be opened, while reservoir Vimala Surendra is already in the process of spilling.
The Tangol Magistrates Court conditionally allowed a protest to be held in Tangol, demanding the release of parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa, along with several others who were detained in connection with the protest held in Hambantota recently. Now, the order was issued after the Tangol police notified the Magistrates Court of the protest, which will be organised by Southern Provincial Councillors T.V. Upul and Ajit Rajapaksa.
The Tangol Magistrates Court issued orders to the Southern Provincial Councillors that the protest be held peacefully without inconveniencing the public, blocking roads or damaging state property. Meanwhile, joint opposition representatives visited the Tangol prison and called on those under remand custody over the Hambantota protest, including MP Namal Rajapaksa.
We should have the right to protest against anything, including the sale of national resources. It is pitiable when improper legal action is taken against those who protest. We will continue this fight even if all of us are jailed, tortured or even killed. We warn this government that they won't last long.
Meanwhile, a number of views were expressed on the Hambantota incident elsewhere in the political arena.
A court order was issued not to behave in a disruptive manner. Despite the order, who took people there? Namal Rajapaksa. They sacrificed the public. There is no use of building up stories. They should have intervened and accepted the assault. 38 political prisoners are held. The police is king there. MP Namal Rajapaksa is not the president. They should understand the people's suffering. In the recent past, they ruled in a dictatorial manner.
Indian and Sri Lankan armies commenced a joint military exercise in Pune, India recently. The exercise aims to enhance military cooperation and developing joint strategies by sharing the expertise of conducting operations, especially in the counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism environment.
The 13-day joint exercise Mithra Shakti 2017 is being conducted for the 5th time between India and Sri Lanka. The exercise is aimed at building cooperation and enhancing operational methods between the two countries.
I wish to stress that this effort is a timely one, where effects of terrorism and insurgency has become a global issue with no boundaries. In this context, both India and Sri Lanka have a curtailed this epidemic within our boundaries.
It is reported that the government has taken measures to establish 100 Wi-Fi zones in the Colombo city as the first step of island-wide program of providing free Wi-Fi. Colombo Municipal Council intends to set up 20 Wi-Fi zones within the city apart from the 10 zones that are already in place. With that, let's now take a look at other stories making news across the country.
Speaking at a media briefing in Colombo today, Honorary Consul for Sri Lanka in Erbil, Kurdistan, Dr. Ahmed Jalaluddin Mustafa says that Kurdistan will assist Sri Lanka in the promotion of Sri Lankan tourism.
Before 30 years, 35 years, have the very good relationship between Sri Lankan and Kurdistan, Iraq, and about the tea, about the agriculture, about the vegetarian fruit and tourism also. Maximum people, they don't know about the Sri Lankan. Before 10 days, we take one report about the Sri Lankan, how can open the way, the people coming here and traveling, tourism, that country, Now Sri Lanka, it is a very safe country, very good country for the tourism coming. It is better that door will open.
A suspect who attempted to smuggle over 3 million rupees worth of gold into the country was arrested by the airport customs at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Kattunayake today. An individual broke into a canteen in Suryapura at Seranuvara, Trincomalee last evening. CCTV cameras recorded the suspect stealing money and several items in the canteen. An elephant which fell into the ZD Canal in Alutwava in Dimbulagala was rescued by the Veheragala wildlife officials today. The elephant was later released to the Kudavava Reserve following an 8-hour rescue operation.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaraweera tells the Vice President of the World Bank, Annette Dixon, that Sri Lanka is poised to leapfrog the economy after long years of conflict and political instability. He made the comments to the Vice President of the World Bank when the duo met in Washington on the sideline of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund conference currently underway in Washington.
Upon meeting the Vice President of the World Bank, Annette Dixon, Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraweera briefed her on the current political and economic dynamics of the country, the government's policy plan for the next 8 years based on the principles of a social market economy. The minister also spoke on the reforms that the government endeavours to undertake in the legal system, including the new Inland Revenue Act. In conclusion, the Minister of Finance said that a comprehensive public sector reform agenda is underway to improve the performance of state-owned enterprises for better financial discipline, transparency and accountability. In response, Annette Dixon said both the Sri Lankan government and the World Bank should work together to devise a comprehensive plan for the betterment of the Sri Lankan economy. Furthermore, she said $100 million, the balance for an environmental project implemented in the Kalani River Basin, will be disbursed in 2018. The initial funding of $152 million was allocated for 2017. In the meantime, Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaraweera met US Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross and a senior cabinet minister of the Trump administration on the sidelines of the World Bank IMF annual meeting in Washington.
Sri Lanka is ranked 84th among 119 countries in the 2017 Global Hunger Index under the serious category with a score of 25.5. The index, compiled by the Washington-based International Food Policy Research Institute, was released last Wednesday. Sri Lanka was ranked the 87th in the index last year, which implies an improvement in the situation.
The index ranked India 100th, Pakistan 106th and Bangladesh 88th, while Nepal is ranked 72nd and Afghanistan ranked 107th. The index is compiled based on the 4 indicators which are undernourishment, child wasting, child stunting and child morality. 14 countries including Belarus, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Chile, Kuwait and Turkey made to the top of the list collectively with a score less than 5 each. Central African Republic scored the highest marks and ranked at the bottom of the index, followed by Chad, Sierra Leone, Madagascar and Zambia respectively.
You are watching Sri Lanka's trusted news brand, Derana 24/7.
US President Donald Trump threatens to tear apart the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, triggering dismay and condemnation from global powers. Trump accused Iran of violating the terms of the deal and proposed new sanctions. All the international observers say Iran has been in full compliance with the agreement. Now, the US Congress now has 60 days to decide whether to pull out of the nuclear deal by reimposing sanctions.
The agreement signed in 2015 is between Iran, UK, US, Russia, France, Germany and China. The deal imposed limits on Iran's nuclear program in return for easing international sanctions. The US Congress requires the president to certify every 90 days that Iran is upholding its part of the agreement. While Trump had already recertified twice, on Friday he refused to sign a third time ahead of a deadline on Sunday.
What is the purpose of a deal that, at best, only delays Iran's nuclear capability for a short period of time? In the event we are not able to reach a solution working with Congress and our allies, then the agreement will be terminated.
In response, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani said the US was more isolated than ever, adding that the agreement is not up for renegotiation. Global powers, including key allies Britain, France and Germany, vowed to stand by the deal. Meanwhile, President Trump's decision had a trickle-down effect on global oil prices as well, as they closed higher yesterday. Analysts say termination of the deal and resumption of sanctions would significantly push up oil prices as traders feared that geopolitical tensions could cut off oil exports from the region.
The devastating wildfires which plagued California shows no signs of abating as firefighters continue to battle them in the heart of California's wine country yesterday as well. Now, their task was made difficult by winds of 100 kilometers per hour that continue to fan the inferno. The death toll now stands at 35 and is expected to rise, with hundreds of people still missing.
The fires, thought to be the deadliest in California since 1933, left scars across 170,000 acres of land, including vast extents of vineyards. Fire crews made enough progress for authorities to begin contemplating repopulation of some evacuated areas. However, they were also bracing for another onslaught of hot, dry winds that could fan the wildfires. Authorities also warned that any looters will face maximum prosecution.
Going to be tolerated.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news across the world.
The Syrian Kurdish YPG militia says so-called Islamic State is on the verge of defeat in the Syrian city of Raqqa. It also claims that the city may finally be cleared of the jihadists within today or tomorrow. Kenyan police used tear gas to disperse protesters in cities including the capital Nairobi yesterday as a standoff continued between the government and opposition leaders over a planned repeat presidential election. The opposition alliance called for demonstrations demanding a new election board to conduct the election. At least 4 people were killed today when a propeller engine cargo plane crashed into the sea near the international airport in Ivory Coast's main city, Abidjan. Security sources say it was a cargo plane carrying freight for the French army.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
The Sri Lankan cricket team has indicated strong reluctance to visit Pakistan for the third and final T20 international scheduled to be played on October 29th at the Gaddafi Stadium in Lahore. Now, according to reports, 40 contracted players of Sri Lanka cricket have handed a letter to the board indicating that they do not wish to travel to Lahore for the last T20 against Pakistan. The letter, signed by the entire current squad and contracted players, has requested the board to consider a venue change. Upon inquiry, President of the Sri Lanka Cricket Board, Maithripala, mentioned that a decision will be made after discussion with the Executive Committee, which is to be held next Monday. After suffering a 2-0 whitewash in the Test series against Sri Lanka, Pakistan bounced back yesterday with a win in the first one-day international, crushing the visitors by 83 runs. A century from Babar Azam and a blistering 81 from Shoaib Malik saw Pakistan lay the foundation for the win as they set the Lions a target of 293 runs.
Winning the toss, Sri Lankan skipper Pultaranga invited Pakistan to bat first. Coming in at number 3, Babar Azam compiled a well-made 103 of 131 deliveries, while Shoaib Malik's 81 came off in just 61 balls, taking Pakistan to 292 for 6. Lahiru Thirumanna was the only Sri Lankan top-order batsman to score a half-century.
Oh, this has gone high. Safra should take it. That's the 4th wicket. Oh, starts off with a brilliant delivery.
Despite being a bowler, Akila Dhananjay's batting put in a noteworthy performance with the bat as he remained unbeaten on 50. Wickets fell at regular intervals and Sri Lankan could only master 209 for 8 wickets in their 50 overs. Hassan Ali and Ruman Rice bagged 3 wickets each and Shoaib Malik claimed the Man of the Match award. The second ODI of the 5-match series is set to be played on Monday.
Let's now cross over to Sheila Fernando at the other Derana Weather Centre with your forecast for the next 24 hours.
Good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. The cooler weather experience in the central hills is set to continue with temperatures to be in the low 20s. The eastern belt of the island, however, stretching from Trincomalee to Hambantota, will experience temperatures in and around 32 degrees Celsius. Western, Sabaragamuwa, central, northwestern and northern provinces along with Galle and Mathura districts in particular are in for rains along with some strong winds. That's it from your Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And before we go, we'd like to take you on a ride alongside the 4th stage of the 2017 Presidential Cycling Tour of Turkey, which was held yesterday. Italian Diego Ulissi won the stage and clinched the overall lead in the race, which concludes tomorrow in Istanbul. Hope you enjoy. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.